Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And I wanted to take a series of videos to talk about what recovery has been like and take a look at some of the different stages of recovery as I've experienced them. And I'm starting with the first month, first 30 days of recovery. What was that like? So for me, I chose to go into a residential treatment center. It was a great option for me because I had dual diagnosis. So not only did I have substance use disorder, I also was suffering from extreme depression, extreme anxiety, and had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Although I've got some questions about whether some of the symptoms that I was experiencing associated with that might have been more drug induced than they were an actual disorder that needed to be treated. Nevertheless, it was a great option for me to go into a residential treatment center because it was a controlled environment where I had access to counselors and someone who could help me manage my medications. And so this was a really good option for me because at the time I really needed help from mental health professionals. So I needed that recovery help as well to help me deal with the lifelong recovery regimen that I was going to need to adopt to deal with my substance use disorder. But I also needed some good counseling and medication management to help with the other mental disorders that I was dealing with. The counseling that I did at my residential treatment center was cognitive behavioral therapy. It was extremely helpful for me. And I had a wonderful counselor who was able to walk me through all sorts of different scenarios that were causing a lot of fear and anxiety in me and help me use cognitive behavioral therapy to come up with more constructive ways to think about and deal with those scenarios. So that kind of staffing was extremely important. I really needed that level of support to help build a foundation for me to move forward in recovery afterwards. It was also really important for me to be around others with similar problems. I was a very isolated drug and alcohol user. I did not associate with a lot of people who use drugs and alcohol the way I did. So it was a little shocking for me to come into residential treatment and find so much in common with so many different people who used alcohol and drugs in ways that were very similar to the way I used them. With all of those people who had such similar experiences and habits, I found a lot of support. I found a lot of camaraderie. It was really important for me to start out my recovery journey surrounded by those people so that I could get used to the idea that I wasn't alone. That was really helpful. The other thing for me is it was important for me to get used to going to meetings about recovery. And I was very fortunate that I was at a residential treatment center before COVID hit. And so in this treatment center, we went out for meetings 6 days out of every week. We left the treatment center for meetings. And I hated it at first. I couldn't stand it because I'm the kind of person that once the sun goes down, I'm not leaving my house. You know, that's at least that's the way I was back then. And the idea of, having to leave and go out for a meeting, it drove me crazy. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just stay at the center and relax and watch TV and hang out. And so this got me into the habit of, no, you can't necessarily do that every night. You've got to make recovery your priority. You've got to get out and get to meetings. And it got me used to going to meetings and meeting new people at meetings and starting to figure out which meetings made sense to me. It also gave me, at this recovery center that I was at this treatment center I was at, they took us to meetings all over town. And not just AA meetings, but refuge recovery meetings and smart recovery meetings. And it was awesome to see not only the different types of meetings and the different types of recovery programs available, but also to see, for AA specifically, the different types of AA meetings available, and to see that there are all sorts of different flavors of this program. And so a lot of times, if it's not working for you, maybe it's not the program itself, maybe it's the meeting you're going to. Maybe you need to find something else, to a different meeting to go to. And so getting out, going to these meetings and just breaking out of my shell in general. I was a very isolated person. And so breaking out of my shell, meeting new people, learning how to have conversations with people again, that was important. The other reason it was really important for me to be in a controlled environment at this point was I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and fear. I was waking up with fear every single morning. This sense of dread in my stomach, in the pit of my stomach, before my feet even hit the ground. And it was nice to be in a controlled environment where I could experiment with ways of facing that fear and dealing with it without running back to alcohol and drugs. I got a lot of good ideas from the counselors there, from the people there, from the techs who were working at the center about how to deal with my fear and how to cope with it. And they worked. But I was able to try different things and figure out which ones worked best for me, partly because I was in a controlled environment where I had the options and some freedom with my time to do that. So, I experienced in my time there some slow improvement, and I started to see those improvements happening because I was really invested in getting better while I was there. I knew I needed to be sober. I knew that was something that I needed for my life, for the rest of my life. And so I really invested myself in the process and in doing what people were telling me to do in order to get better. Looking back, though, about 20 months ago was when I was in the center. Looking back, it almost seems like a different person in there, because I still was operating from a place of extreme fear, still operating from a place of wanting a lot of control and being overly concerned with what other people were doing. But it was a good place to explore what it felt like to face that fear rather than run from it. So by day 30, by the end of that first month, I had been out of the residential treatment center for 2 days. I had started a partial hospitalization program where I was going to the treatment center had an alumni center. I was going there every day for more process sessions, more education, and I was learning to readjust to life in the real world. The other thing that happened around this time was I started to feel like I had everything under control. And I was very soon to have that feeling completely ripped away from me. But that's a story for next time, so I'm going to stop right there. That's what the first 30 days looked like for me. I could go into a lot more detail. If you have any questions about what the first 30 days were like for me, hit me up in the comments. Otherwise, if you like these videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let me know. And otherwise, I will be back here tomorrow with more.